What's shaking bacons? So I decided I wanted to rewatch all of the Star Wars movies to experience the ups and downs and the joys that come with that. And so naturally, I started with the infamous episode one, The Phantom Menace. So I'm thinking about doing a couple relatively brief videos on the Phantom Menace or centered around it. But for now, I wanted to give just a kind of quick review of the Phantom Menace. And I probably don't have to say this at this point, but in case I do, if you have not seen the Phantom Menace, first of all, go watch it. And yes, I do recommend watching it. But second of all, I'm going to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, and you care about being spoiled, you should scooch. Let's talk about the Phantom Menace. When I rate movies, this is just me rating the movies based on my personal taste. I was thinking about the way that I've been rating these movies. I actually came, because I'm a super nerd and I love Excel, I actually made a little rating tool for myself in Excel based on the criteria that I think that I look for most when I personally value a film. My scale has 6 major parts, and that is acting, inconsistencies or issues with the film, the plot, or the story, the predictability of a movie, the entertainment factor, the cringe level, and the music. These are very personalized assessments of a movie, but when you see a movie, I think it's a very, very personal experience. This is actually a really interesting way for me to assess in a more objective fashion how I feel about the movie. My final rating for The Phantom Menace, as calculated by my movie review tool that I made for myself, was 64%. I'm sure some people are going to be like, I can't believe you rated it so highly. And for anyone who's wondering, I also objectively into this tool put in my feelings and ratings on Star Wars The Last Jedi as directed by Rian Johnson, and that final rating 36% for The Last Jedi out of my objective, just ticking off the numbers according to the scale that I made for myself. So I think it's obvious that I really, really dislike The Last Jedi. If you guys haven't seen my other 2 reviews on those, you should watch them. The first one is a complete rant. The other one is actually a thought out breakdown of all of the issues that I had with that movie and why it was I didn't like it. And I addressed questions from people that had popped up in the comments on my original rant. But we're not here to talk about The Last Jedi. We are here to talk about The Phantom Menace. So The Phantom Menace, in comparison, got a final rating from me of 64%. I had rated it over 90% bad in acting. There was some inconsistency and issues that I had with the story and the film. There was some cringe to it, like any scene with young Anakin has cringe to it. And there was nothing taken off for the music, because I still think that the music is phenomenal in that movie. And I think for the entertainment factor, I chopped the score down a little bit because I started reaching for my phone, because there are parts of Phantom Menace that do get a little dull. Let's talk about why I rated Phantom Menace a 64%. So first of all, of course, it was actually directed by George Lucas. And it starts off, there's some kind of trade blockade because of a tax issue. And these 2 Jedi, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, are attempting to come to a peaceful resolution with the Trade Federation. And of course, that doesn't happen. And they end up fleeing the planet of Naboo with Queen Amidala in an attempt to reach the Galactic Republic Senate to plead their case and try and get the Trade Federation out while they're meanwhile invading their planet. And of course, the film centers around the discovery of Anakin Skywalker as a child on Tatooine, the story of how his powers with the Force became discovered by Qui-Gon and by Obi-Wan, the reveal of, at least to the audience, of who exactly the Emperor was and how the Emperor started, and of course ended with the death of Qui-Gon, the death of the Sith apprentice Darth Maul, and the peace between the Gungans and the Naboo. Meanwhile, the Emperor is now the Supreme Chancellor, and he's, just screwing things up in the Senate. So that is a very, very, very high overview of the Phantom Menace, of course. So the storyline by itself, though, compared to a lot of recent storylines, is spot on, I think. There are issues with a little inconsistencies. Like, you'll see an inconsistency at times during the film where they just missed small details, such as whenever they exit any kind of water, they're never wet at all. And I don't, maybe the Force is just like a giant hairdryer and it just like blows them dry. I don't know. And there's a couple little quibbles I have with the story. Like at the end, I love the sequence with Darth Maul when he fights Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. It is one of the best fight scenes in the Star Wars saga. I think it's phenomenal. Maul is so sinister. So the music, the Duel of the Fates is just so intense. And the whole time you have this Sith apprentice who is standing up to a full Jedi Master and a Jedi who is about to be promoted from Padawan after he goes through his trials. So essentially, two full-blooded Jedi, and he just holds them off with ease, and he's just like prowling back and forth like a caged lion when those laser doors are opening and shutting. I always get chills during that scene because I'm one of those geeks that gets chills. See, I just got excited. I hit the microphone. I'm one of those geeks that gets chills when I see stuff like that. And I just thought it was so well done. But I do have issues. This is one of the issues I have with the story. I thought it was so well done, but I don't get why there were timed laser door intervals. It was great for the buildup of tension. It showed that wild animal caged lion quality that Darth Maul had as he prowled and stalked them. But was there any reason for them to just like, why did the doors cycle? Why? So there's a couple inconsistencies like that. And the other thing that I had a big issue with was that the entire beginning of the movie, the whole setup is pretty unclear. In the opening crawl, when I haven't watched this movie in a long time, and when I saw the opening crawl, I was like, wow, boy, is that boring. Because it's talking about taxes, and you're basically left looking like, this is Star Wars? And he's talking about taxes?
Oh.
So it's kind of like, and the whole reason why there was an issue in the first place, I think, is just never really explained or made clear. You're just kind of thrust into this miasma of politics. So, and that also ties in with the entertainment factor. And I think overall this movie is very entertaining. You've got pod racing, you have these beautiful vignettes and filmography and just incredible costume and makeup design in this movie. But, there is a lot of politics. It's pretty confusing. I understand why some of it had to be there in order to lay the background for how exactly the Emperor was able to maneuver himself into power, but I do think that there's a little too much an entertainment factor. You get to a point where they're just talking and talking and talking about these politics, and you're just kind of like, oh, the movie's still going. You start kind of drifting off. So there was one or two times I started to reach for my phone. And when I start to reach for a phone in a movie, that's when I know, like, okay, I'm going to kind of downgrade the entertainment factor. The other big issue I think that this movie has is the acting. So part of that, of course, at this point, everyone knows is due to the fact that most of the sets and the backgrounds and the environment that the actors had to interact with was CGI, and it's incredibly difficult for an actor to completely interact only with CGI elements. Like if you've ever filmed a video, if you've ever streamed, you are essentially speaking to the camera, and I'm talking to you guys through my camera, but at the time I'm recording this, you are looking at an inanimate object, and it can be difficult to muster up that kind of full depth of emotion that you would have otherwise. And especially for, I'm just being myself and I'm talking to you guys about a movie that I do really like. And I can imagine how difficult it must have been for these actors to just be on a set with nothing but green, and they're like, all right, you are in a spaceship, or you are in the desert of Tatooine, or you are watching a pod race. And these poor actors are like, all right, let me try and chroma key that into my brain off that green background, So the acting is very, very poor in relation to the actual talent of the actors in the film. There's like no emotion on their face. There's no real reactions when you would expect there to be reactions, like in shocking moments, or when one of them is in danger, or when they're worried, for example, like Anakin's going to lose the pod race. I mean, to be totally honest, I thought the best actor in the movie was the space pilot of Queen Amidala's ship. He was like the one guy that had any kind of emotion at all when he was acting, that wasn't coming across as stilted or forced. And it just really made me laugh because I was watching it and I was like, well, there's an acting issue when the unknown pilot for Queen Amidala is like the standout of the movie. So it just makes me it makes me laugh. And I know there are a lot of problems with this movie in terms of people say that it comes across as racist in the depiction of some of the dialect or the accents used for some of the characters and the mannerisms. I saw this movie when I was young enough to not really pick up on that kind of thing. So having had it pointed out to me, I can see where there are problems. Obviously that's problematic, and I did count that as one of the issues with the film, because even if those were not meant to be stereotypes, and even if they weren't meant to be coming across as racist, the fact that so many people were able to interpret them as being so indicates that that's a problem, and that's something that the director, Mr. George Lucas, and producers, editors, everyone who worked on the film should have also picked up on, not just the masses of people that have seen this movie since then. Of course, there are some issues, with the acting, with some of the inconsistencies and the issues in the film. Overall, I think the filmography is great. The effects are phenomenal for the time period. I think the story as a whole is well done. I'm going to say something that people are immediately going to hate me for. I like Jar Jar, and I liked him before the Darth Jar Jar theory, which, by the way, was partially confirmed by his voice actor. There was going to be something along that lines. Jar Jar had a much larger role, and unfortunately, George Lucas kind of caved to feedback of the audience about the character, and I really think that he could have turned that all around for the character if he had stayed true to that plot, just like the end plot that he backed off on for Revenge of the Sith, where Padme would have been the one who led the attack against Anakin at the end, and she would then go on to found the resistance to the Empire. And it's a shame, because if he had taken those risks with Jar Jar and with Padme, both of those characters would have come across as much stronger and deeper versus the kind of shallow, odd, kind of annoying behavior that they can have. But I always enjoyed Jar Jar. I thought he was just such a stupid character that I enjoyed how dumb he was, and I enjoyed how annoying he was, because at the time, that's what you were just supposed to. He was just supposed to be this annoying thing for you to hate on. And I loved him as something to hate in the movie. And I thought Jar Jar, I enjoyed Jar Jar's just utter stupidity. For me, Jar Jar is so terrible that he's good. So don't at me about Jar Jar, all right? I know he's bad, but he's so bad that it's good. So, and it introduced a lot of characters that I love. I loved Ewan McGregor's portrayal of Obi-Wan. I absolutely love the character of Padme Amidala. Until the last movie, her character just took a nosedive. And again, I think that has to do with George Lucas not staying true to his original vision. But I love Padme. I've always loved Padme. She was such a strong take charge role model, especially for me as a younger girl. And I think that Star Wars today should take note of that kind of a role model, because I find more of a role model in the tenacity and the bravery and in the leadership of the character of Padme Amidala than I have in terms of any kind of relation to Rey or to Rose or to purple-haired lady. Padme was a strong female character. If you want to do a strong female character right, look at Padme, look at Leia, not the new Leia. That is not the new Leia. That's not Leia. Just like that's not Luke. Old Leia, Padme, those characters though, strong female characters. Those are the kind of strong female characters and role models that I like to see. I think that overall, the movie is worth watching. I've rated it almost 20% higher than Star Wars The Last Jedi, if that tells you anything. In terms of story, it's far more cohesive. It sticks to George Lucas's original vision. And I think that The Phantom Menace is overall a fun film to watch, even though the million wipe transitions drive me crazy. I don't think I have ever been more bothered by transitions in a film than in this one. I was like, oh look, another wipe transition. George Lucas, have you heard of any other film transitions? Guys, we have a porg in the background. There he goes. So anyway, my final score for The Phantom Menace is 64%. I enjoyed it. The acting is tragic. There are some inconsistencies and issues with the story and with the plot, but it came out over a decade ago, which makes me feel really old, but regardless, the logo still fills me with excitement. There are still lots of scenes in the movie that I look forward to seeing. It is actually better than I remember it to be, and I think that it is a fun, if flawed, beginning to the entire Star Wars saga. So, tell me guys, what are your thoughts on The Phantom Menace? Do you hate it as much as other people do? Are you secretly okay with The Phantom Menace and you've been afraid to say so because it's been vilified by so many people? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me your thoughts on The Phantom Menace. And I am so grateful you guys tuned in. Thank you so much. I just recently hit 1,000 subscribers and I am currently planning a giveaway. I have some prizes on order and they've been shipped, so I'm waiting to get them in before I set up a giveaway for you guys to say thank you. I am so grateful that so many people are interested in what I have to say, and I am so glad to have found a community that likes to talk about movies and the fandom with me. It's really nice to be able to talk to people who understand the kind of passion I have for this genre and for movies and for Star Wars in general as well. Thank you again so much. I'm very grateful that you guys have subscribed to me, and if you have movies or video games or anything you want to see me play or watch or review or talk about, please let me know in the comments. And you can also catch me on Twitter now. I made a Twitter. I also stream live on Twitch. I usually try from Monday, Wednesday, Fridays around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch me there. Otherwise, thank you again so much, and I will catch you next time. Bye.